Hello and welcome to Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. We want to keep shining a light on rugby that is not shown in the mainstream media. I'm Carl. Thanks for joining us on the next instalment of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod and keep in touch with us on our social media platforms. We have some amazing guests lined up in the coming weeks and we really don't want you to miss out on them. As mentioned in the last week's pod, I'm travelling for a few weeks, but to make sure we keep moving, the interviews have been pre-recorded. So some bits may have played out, but we still get to see the raw opinions beforehand. This week, we have finally got our first pro on. Joe Batley is on from the Bristol Bears. We are so excited to share this interview with you all. From Joe starting at the mighty Gosport to breaking into the pro game to then receiving a cancer diagnosis at the age of 21 to now being one of the best second row options we have in the Prem. I'm not going to hang around with this one. Let's just get on with the interview. Well, as I said the other day, we're only getting better with our guests. Now we're right up there now. We've got Joe Batley on from Bristol Bears currently, our first pro player or current pro player on the pod. So, Joe, thank you so much for your time, mate. Really appreciate you jumping on. Obviously, everyone would love to hear the story. Obviously, there's a lot of probably a bit of a backstory that people aren't aware of with yourself and your journey. So, obviously, if you're more than welcome to jump in, chuck your rugby journey on, and talk about where you've been, what you've done, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so started off at Gosport and Fair Rugby Club, then took the opportunity to go to Hartby College, which is a college in Gloucester that big in rugby. So did that for 2 years and had the best 2 years. Managed to get myself a contract with Gloucester in their academy. Did 3 years there and then signed a professional deal with Bristol. Moved down to Bristol. Unfortunately, got cancer my first year at Bristol, which was
that
tough.
When Bristol were in the Championship, Joe?
Yes.
Was that the Championship season? Yeah. So
I played 5 or 6 games and then got diagnosed. So I was 21 at the time, and I was selected to start in the game against Ealing away, Ealing was the next team closest to us that could potentially get promoted.
Yeah.
So it was a big game. We won that game, so it was a great time, and we had a week off afterwards. And then when we came back after the week off, one of my teammates, Sawani Tongawea, he pointed out I had a lump in my neck. So then I went to the doctor and just asked the club doctor, asked him what the crack was. He wasn't too sure, so he then referred me to the hospital, had a biopsy, and then came back that I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. So yeah, a bit of a whirlwind month. Jesus. And then after that, had 6 months of chemo, a month of radiotherapy, and thankfully it went away. So now I'm in this August I will be 6 years in remission. So wow. It's been a long time now, so but it's still very much in recent memory. So
Jesus.
Yeah. And then from Bristol, I then went on loan to Leicester to get some more game time.
Yeah.
And then signed for Worcester. Was at Worcester for just over 2 and a bit years. Then obviously they've then folded financially. So then I managed to get myself a gig back at Bristol. So went a bit full circle, and now I've been at Bristol for 2 seasons. So that's a very, very quick overview of my journey so far.
It's mental, Joe, to be honest. Obviously, that your diagnosis was just before the COVID period as well. So I bet that obviously that happened just before sort of COVID turned up. Did that sort of put you on a bit of a back?
2018. So
COVID was what, 2019, end of 2020.
2020. Yeah. So I managed to get back from that and thinking, all good. And then I managed to play my Premiership debut the season after I had cancer, which was huge and like a massive move for me and my family. Then naturally just fell out of favour a little bit with the coaches. Didn't get much game time. Went to Leicester to try and get a bit more of a look in, which helped, which then obviously got me another contract with Worcester. So yeah, all up and down. But the COVID period was rocky. So I got released from Bristol after being on loan to Leicester. Leicester then had nothing for me. Then I was ended up back in Gosport, living on my mum's sofa for a few weeks, and then luckily my old coach Jonathan Thomas, who was then DOR at Worcester, then rung me up and asked me if I fancied it. So yeah, it's a few times rugby almost got taken away from me. So I also, when I was 18, had a really bad knee injury. So I ruptured my ACL, my LCL, my PCL, all the CLs in my knee, and yeah, I was out for 13 months. So yeah, that was a long time, especially at 18, where you're meant to be getting your most of your rugby to try and develop as quick as you can. Yeah, that was tough, and then that also then led me to miss 2 under 20 World Cups. So I managed to play in the Six Nations, and then got injured. So then I missed a whole season and a bit, which then was my 2 chances at under 20s World Cup, which was yeah, at that time it was the biggest thing ever. Obviously, looking back now, it's probably not as massive as I may have thought, but yeah, it was an experience that I missed out on, and obviously look back now at some of the memories that those lads have with similar age to me, and think, what if? So yeah.
Well, the thing is, mate, you're putting one hell of a shift in at Bristol again this time round. So I think if probably most people on the rugby podcast probably never watched Soccer AM, but they come up with a word called bounce back ability.
Yeah,
I think you are literally that word personified by the story and the journey that you've been through. Literally, every time you get knocked down, you come back strong.
Yeah, I think obviously like staying positive and putting your best foot forward like does a lot. I've been lucky as well. Like managed to get some good relationships with good coaches that then managed to help me out. And then when I got the chances, I managed to take them as well, which was huge. But yeah, I think I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have, and this is the job I've always wanted, and it's the dream that I've had from when I started off at Gosport and Fareham playing tag rugby on those back pitches. So yeah, like very much living the dream, and now seeing my son come to the games, really like bouncing at every home game that he gets to come on the pitch, and yeah, seeing that joy in him, and like the joy in all the fans that I interact with as well, reminds me of me as a boy going to the professional games, getting signatures, just dreaming of those moments of being on the pitch. To actually live them now is yeah, it keeps me grounded and keeps me hungry for more. So
it's amazing. So as you said, the plan was always to become a pro player. How did you put yourself in that shop window? What did you do that stand you out from the rest of the crowd? Because obviously a lot of kids are probably thinking, I really want to do that. What would be the one advice that you would now put in place now for young Joe, should we say?
So I obviously did a load of the trials growing up. London Irish was the feeder club for Hampshire.
Yeah.
Obviously, sadly, they're not there anymore, so I'm not too sure where the Hampshire kids go now.
I think most of them go Quins, don't they? But that's quite saturated with Surrey and everything like that as well now, isn't it? So
like my big break was going to Hartbury. And what my big advice that I give anyone is obviously keep working on the things that you're not so good at, but whatever is your super strength, make sure that you show that as much as you can. So if you're in a trial game or a trial session, like if your X factor is like a carry, make sure you get the hands on the ball and carry as many times as you can. So because to be honest, people aren't going to remember what you're not good at. They're going to remember what you are good at. And then you've got a chance once you get through that first step to improve your work-ons. And like, no matter how high up you get or how good you become, like your work-on's always going to stay there. But what people remember is what you're good at. So if you get the opportunity to show that, then show it as many times as you can. And then from the back of that, there's always time to work on anything else.
So what would you say? I know that you're now a pro, mate, but what would you say is your work-ons?
My work-ons, so probably my tackle selection.
Okay.
I probably need to get a few more dominant hits in. So My carrying's good. I beat a lot of defenders and my footwork, whatever. But my tackle selection, I tend to get quite planted,
Bit
which then leads me.
Is that a little bit down to timing, or you're a little bit keen, or is?
I think it's just like my approach to a tackle. So if I kind of let the attacker pick his way, and then I go for a chop tackle, which obviously it's effective. It makes the tackle, but for a second row now, you kind of, if you look at the ones that are going really well, it's the ones that are making those dominant hits time and time again. And if you get your approach right and you manage to get your feet in close, then obviously your power base is closer to the collision, which then allows you to get more.
Do you think that's down to the tackle height change, Joe? Because obviously you're not a small lad. For people that aren't aware, you're what, nearly 6'7"?
Yeah,
roughly?
around 6'7". Yeah. It depends.
So do you think the tackle height has affected your selection? Did you tackle better when you were younger, when that tackle height wasn't in place?
Potentially. I think obviously whenever you go into a collision, you have to really assess everything. Like as soon as you go higher, you run the risk. However, saying that, obviously in the pro game, there's a lot more scope and a lot more outlets. So my work on would be, if I'm looking at my game outside to in, it's probably I need to up the amount of dominant tackles I have. My tackle success rate's good. However, am I really stamping authority down in defence when it comes to the collisions? Probably not.
What's your super strength then? Probably not having a jump in a line out. That's probably up there, isn't it?
Yeah, at the moment. So Bristol finished the season with the best line out in the league, which is amazing. So probably my line out intellect in terms of calling, and then my jump. Also, I'm very comfortable with the ball in my hand, which suits the way Bristol play. Obviously, we've had a season of two halves, and the second half we've taken the shackles off a bit and played a bit more with the ball. So that suits the way I play. I like playing to the line and either going myself or putting someone else through. So that'd be probably my main super strength. But obviously, the job title of a second row is to dominate the air. So if I'm not winning the line out or restarts or getting well in defensive line out, then I'm pretty useless for somebody 6'7". So I think that's my super strength, and then anything I can do on the back of that is a bonus.
I've got a couple of mates that I've come up to the Bristol games a few times. They're big Bristol Bears fans. Got a little group chat. They've been proper fangirling that we've got you on, mate. So they think you've been a massive impact, because that was Bristol's strength for ages when it was the maul off the line out, and there was probably a couple of years just before you joined that they kind of lost their way. They had that brilliant season where everything was pretty much coming down maul, and they're just opening up space, and then they kind of lost their way for a couple of years. So the lads in the group chat can't wax more lyrical about what you've done over there, mate. I know it's not just you, it's a team game, but they're big fans of yourself, mate. Has Pat Lam sort of just taken the handbrake off down to the lack of relegation, or is the team in a bit of a transitional period at the minute? What's your say on that, or you're not allowed to say?
I mean, we definitely don't look down the table. Everything we do is looking up. So I wouldn't say relegation or lack of relegation has hindered anything to do with us. We've as a team, we've obviously, like I mentioned before, we've had kind of a year of two halves.
Yeah.
We looked quite a lot at like winning the kicking game early in the season. Obviously, South Africa won the World Cup by doing that.
Yeah.
Leicester won the
Prem last year,
Premiership a couple of years ago, doing exactly the same. And all the big stats and all the big like key points in games we're looking at. If you win the kick meters, you win the game. So we went down that route, and obviously to get those kick meters and to make a real big claim in that, you have to have a dominant pack. So you win penalties, which then gives you opportunities to kick ball, which you're definitely going to retrieve by getting field position up the bit, which then obviously you need to get good line outs and good mauls and good scrums. So we looked massive in that, and we won the first 2 games. We beat Leicester and we beat Saints, which was amazing. And then last kick of the game, we lost to Quins, which was unfortunate. Just gave away a penalty last play and they kicked it over and they won the game. And then Exeter away, we had a kick to then get a point, which then we missed, so in the space of 2 weeks, we missed out on 5 points, which obviously was telling come the end of the year. And yeah, I think we probably went a little bit away from our identity a little bit. We got a bit more focused on stats. And once we took the shackles off after that Connacht game in the Champions Cup, and we really put Bath to the sword, put 50 on them. We then put Saints on the sword, 60 on them. Obviously, everyone saw it up against Newcastle. Gloucester, we beat more defenders than anyone's ever had in a game before. So, we probably have a lot more of a complete performance and balanced team now than the beginning of the year because of the transition and the growth that we've all made as individuals and as a team.
Yeah.
So next year, we felt like we were in a good spot to get into the playoffs. Obviously, the loss to Saracens at home really hurt us, and then Saracens hurt us again by then losing to Sale, which we didn't see coming. And obviously, credit to Sale, they've had a really good second half of the season as well. So
when I messaged you, Joe, I was like, Joe, let's do this in about 4 to 6 weeks time when you win the Prem, and maybe I'll put the kiss of death on it. I do apologise, mate, but I was just like, I thought you were in the prime position. Most people didn't expect Sarries to lose that last game either. So you guys did everything to put yourself on the sheet. So, as you said, maybe it was the start of the season that put you in a position. But do you think that also made you a better team? You've kind of got to go to a certain place to become a better team. And Northampton Saints have done that probably for the last couple of years. And now they've found their own sort of stamp and their freedom and their way they want to play rugby. Is that sort of a fair stamp for Bristol as well?
Yeah, I think it's always interesting, always having one eye on like the future and stuff like that. But we definitely felt as a squad that we're in a better spot. Obviously, we're going to lose quite a few big names and big players end of the season to next. We've got a really good core group of Bristolians in the team. We've got a good core group of young lads. Everything seems to be pointing in the right direction. It's weird. Pre-season comes and goes, and then by the end of pre-season, you feel like you're in an unbelievable spot. And it's not until you have that first game where you kind of really know where you're at. Yeah. So, at the moment, we're probably still stewing on what could have been. Obviously, if things went a little bit different, we could have been playing this weekend. If we probably picked up a couple more points throughout the year, we definitely would have been. So now, in this 5 weeks off, which we have at the end of the season, a lot of it is down to catching up with the family time, getting things ready, being away from the club, and then pre-season will soon come, and then by the end of it, it's the new year, new team, and ready to go again. But I feel like Bristol Bears are going to be up there and asking a lot of questions of the Prem, a lot of questions of the team. Obviously, we're in the Champions Cup again, which is amazing, where the club should be, and we're looking forward to the challenges that has as well as all those amazing away days that the European trophy gives you.
Any big signings you reckon are going to turn up, Joe? Are you going to leak any secrets for us? Anyone that you've got the rumblings? Is Bowden Barrett going to turn up in a different shirt this summer or something?
Oh wow!
Imagine that.
Unfortunately, no.
With Sheedo going, they've got to upgrade it slightly, haven't they? At least.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hear when everyone else hears. So it's obviously exciting seeing Bill Matter come. He was amazing in the World Cup, and he's been amazing for Fiji and Edinburgh for quite a long time. So, Fijians have gone really well when they've come to Bristol. We've got a couple at the club now who are great lads, and they're just, I don't know what it is about the Islanders. They're just built different, and obviously I know there's a couple of Fijians down at Gosport Park at the moment that play, and I've watched them play when my brothers played in the twos and stuff. So, I think universally,
How is
managers are just built
Tom?
different. So.
How is
Tom's
Tom?
good. Yeah, he's good. Yeah,
I remember when he played for his.
a few times. So.
I remember when he played for his first game in the twos or maybe the threes, and I was in his game, and he turned up, and everyone was like, oh, "It's Joe's brother." Oh, it's Joe. I'm like, "All right, okay." And then he put in one hell of a shift as well, and we thought, right, you're not going anywhere. And then he disappeared off to like college or uni, didn't he? And that was, I'm like, right, hold on. There's blokes that can't catch a ball down here, and then you've got your brother that's being able to actually go forward. So it was great to see. But no, I'm glad to see he's back in Gosport. Is he sort of finished his college bit? Has he moved back home? Has he got any ambitions to go away?
He's moved back home for a bit, and he's got a job in Chichester way now. So
okay.
Be interesting to see. I think he played a fair bit end of the season for the twos.
Yeah.
Just looking to get a bit of fitness back up. So yeah, he tells me he's going to really get after pre-season and go from there. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a cool story until you've done a pre-season down in Gosport.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you going to be popping down there? Any sessions planned for you to pop down and give pointers as well? Because you've done, for people that don't know, you're a regular face down back in Gosport, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I hope to do it again soon. Obviously, it's all like how it lines up with my time off.
Yeah.
I always message Polly when I can to see if he needs a helping hand or if he wants me to come over and cover anything. Obviously, I've got a lot of time for the club, and it was my home away for home for years and years, from the age of 7 till 16, and then even now, whenever I'm home, I go back and watch. Like, some of my closest friends still play for the club, which is amazing, and obviously my mum and dad and my brother have all been involved with the club. So I think obviously we're having a child myself of my own now. Timings get a little bit hazy, so I'll be keen to do it again. And when I'm down there, and I'll message Polly and see what happens.
No, fair play. So obviously as you said, you got 5 weeks off. Do you literally switch off from rugby? Does it completely go out your mind, apart from this Nor's getting you on the podcast? But like, do you like literally switch off and then it's go time again when that first day back at pre-season is, or do you sort of keep your eye in?
I mean, I absolutely love my job. I love the sport. I mean, we watched the games on the weekend, like the 2 finals.
Yeah.
I'll be watching the semi-finals this weekend. I'll watch the final next week, and they say 5 weeks off, but for 3 of them you have to be doing some training, which we've got a GPS for.
Right.
We could just do it away from the club, which is good. And
you've not got a dog. You've not got a dog that you can just put it on and let him run around the garden or something.
No, I'm not that fast. No, straight away. But
put it on the boy. The boy will be able to run around. He'll put some steps
he's
on.
too fast for me as well. They know again. So but yeah, no, I don't switch off, and I'll be whatever I can do to try and improve my game next year. I'll be looking to try and do. It's to get 5th. To get 5th place this year, to just miss out has burnt deep in me. So like, not wanting to feel that again, and if I can get myself to be a couple % better, then I'm going to take the opportunity and we'll get after it next year.
So obviously, as you touched on earlier, the diagnosis, mate. What was the support within the game? Was it 100% from start? Obviously, as you said, you got released just around the COVID period, so that was kind of after the diagnosis. Was there everything was on a plate? They did everything they physically could for you and helped you back through, or?
Yeah, well, obviously they initially caught it, so thankfully I was at Bristol, where there's a big hospital, and they've got a cancer ward, and they've got a young, not just that, they've got a teenage and young person cancer ward, which was huge for me. So my first chemo session was in an adult ward, which was full of, like, you want of the best word, a lot of old people.
Yeah.
Which was quite scary for a 21-year-old who was meant to be in the prime of his fitness life, to be very ill and be surrounded by people who were very, very ill.
Yeah.
Which was scary. to then I got transferred to a teenage ward, which obviously is sad because it's young people that have got
A little
serious
bit more,
illnesses.
little bit more relatable though, and a little bit closer
Yeah,
to your age than the other end of the scale in that sense as well, isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, so like
And they probably
having
took a benefit off that as well. Actually, seeing somebody of your stature and your profession, they probably had a little bit of hope and bit of an understanding around it as well. Did it sort of help some of them that were in there?
Yeah, I mean, potentially, like everyone's doing their own little battle in their own
Trying to
little
keep their own
world.
bit, yeah.
What helped me was obviously I was in this ward, which I could see people that were similar to me. It was a lot more open. I could have people come visit more
Right.
often because I was with people who weren't necessarily as ill as those upstairs in the adult ward.
Yeah.
So I had family, I had teammates, friends come visit me, which was amazing. So yeah, having that on the doorstep was huge. Bristol as a club were amazing. The team doc, Dr. John Williams, who's
Yeah.
now not with the club anymore. He's now moved on to different sports and teams, but he was unbelievable. He supported me throughout, from diagnosis to ringing the bell to say I was cancer free, to
Yeah.
years
Brilliant.
after. He was still messaging me when I was still at Worcester. He then rung me up when I went back to Bristol. So like he's been huge
Yeah.
in the background. Pat was really good with me. Obviously, there wasn't lots I could have done training wise, but he still was okay about me coming into the training ground when I felt okay.
Yeah.
Doing bits that I could do. I was very in the mindset of I was going to do as much as I possibly could without fucking myself.
Yeah.
So I did what I could, and he was very accommodating to that. The S&C staff were great when I was coming back from it. So I think what I probably struggled with, being 21 and very naive, was the cancer treatment finished. I was now cancer free. So in my head, I was now fit.
Right.
However, obviously,
Takes time.
it does. It probably took, and probably what I've said since, like in the hindsight, was the break that we had for COVID was probably where I caught up.
Right.
So I remember playing games like 6 months after and just really blowing up after 40.
Right.
And no matter how many minutes, how much training I did, I couldn't bridge that gap of like getting the fitness there. And it wasn't until with that forced rest where my body probably could catch up. It
Yeah.
wasn't getting battered. It wasn't getting flogged all the time. I could do training on my terms, and I probably did a lot less gym and a lot more running. So I've got that fitness up, and then I could then build up my weight a bit more naturally instead of trying to rush it all. And
Yeah.
I then got myself to a point where at Worcester I was a lot fitter. I could move better. My collisions were more often instead of being a big one and then having a long time to recover.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the naivety of it all led me to probably get a little bit down on myself. So I used to get really annoyed that I couldn't quite perform at the level I was prior to my diagnosis and cancer treatment and then whatever, to then obviously having that rest and then realizing that I probably wasn't giving myself the best chance to.
Yeah.
And then since then, obviously having a son where I didn't know if that was possible because they said there was a risk that I was going to become infertile. So I've got a load of swimmers in the bank in Bath.
Yeah.
But luckily managed to have my son naturally, which was
Brilliant.
huge. And it's probably put a massive perspective on life and how I approach my rugby, which has been unbelievable. And just having him to come to my games and seeing the pride in his face. He doesn't know who wins. To be honest, he supports the rugby ball because
He don't care
he only
where it
cheers when that
goes.
gets kicked or when that goes over the post. So he's never lost a game yet, Will, because he just supports the rugby ball. So
Amazing.
but yeah, so that's been a real turning for me in terms of my outlook on life, my outlook on the rugby game as well.
Do you think you pushed yourself? The club were happy to put the handbrake on, or did you want to try and prove to yourself that you could come back quicker? Do you think you put more pressure on yourself than the game did, or did you feel that you had to return the support that they put in you? Was that something that you run through your head?
I think obviously when you get injured, there's a clear timeline of things you have to hit to get back to playing and being fit. But with the cancer diagnosis, a lot of it is all about feel.
Right.
And there's not been that many documented
Cases of it.
Cases of people having cancer in rugby with Hodgkin's lymphoma to get back into full-time professional rugby. So like, a lot of it was down to like, they asked me the question, how am I feeling? I say, yeah, class, let's keep going. Like, there's only so much that they can do, like to pull the handbrake on. And I would never pass the blame. Like, I think I pushed it as much as I could, just out of
pure determination, a bit both. Yeah, he wanted to return it, but also you probably thought, was there an element that you thought, if I said no, I'm not ready, not that they doubted it or anything like that, but you kind of felt that element of, I've got to just try and get back as quick as I physically can for everything they've done.
Yeah, I think also like in professional sport, your shelf life is very short. And your shelf life can only survive on minutes that you play in the public eye.
Yeah.
So if you're not playing for an extended period of time, then your stock or your value decreases massively.
Yeah.
And then once it gets to a certain point, it's very hard to then get yourself back in the public eye where your stock can grow.
Yeah.
So you're facing the clock on quite a few different things. And like, I was 21.
Yeah.
I hadn't achieved anywhere near what I wanted to in the sport, and like the drive to then get myself back out there to play my best rugby, to perform for Bristol, to be a Premiership player, to be first name on the team sheet, to try and get an England call up, to then like you have all these aspirations that you go into it, to then realising that, hang on, I've not played in the Prem yet, I'm nowhere near the team, I'm not fit, and my contract runs out in a year's time. So like you have all those things in your head, and like, it obviously hindsight, I go, hang on, I pull back a little bit for 4 months and then give the last 6-7 months my all, where I can perform better, but I rush those 4 months where then I play a couple games, don't play that great, but do enough, and then I get pigeonholed as like, oh, he could be good, he's got potential, but are we willing to risk it? He's not fit. What's he doing outside of rugby? He did have cancer, but that's been a year now. So like, how committed is he? Do you know what I mean? So there's a load of different things where maybe the naivety of my age, the ignorance of everything will be fine, I'll just work myself through it. Then having now where I'm a bit older, had the time to probably, another thing that COVID gave me in the break was it forced me to reflect.
Yeah.
It forced me to think about what I had actually been through as a person, not just as like a rugby player who's coming back from an illness, like as a man, as a boy, basically, who had cancer and now is trying to come back from that. So like, obviously risk of getting too deep and heavy now, like it's forced me to see things very differently. Not to say that I won't make the same mistake again. Like, you get hungry, and when you feel like something's so close that's your dream, then like you obviously do what you can to get there. But I think to answer your question, I don't think the club knew to put the brakes on me. I think I very much pushed it, and like they just backed my word for it.
As you said, there was no previous. There's no template to work from. So
no.
As you said, it's a lot of it's down to you. You sort of guide. They've probably got a book that tells them this is where we should roughly be at. If you were like miles ahead or miles behind, they'd obviously adapt around it. But it's a lot, as you said, it's a lot down to you. So brilliant that they managed to support you in every way. Do you think that because there's such a lack of professional teams within the Premiership, within the English rugby divisions, do you think that accelerated your thought process, because you couldn't drop down a league or two to be able to go and play in, say, the Championship or Nat 1 while still making a professional salary? Do you think that sort of questioned your acceleration to what you wanted to do and how you were going to come back from the illness?
Like, a lot of it's probably to do with pride as well.
Yeah,
Like you said, there's not many pro teams below the Prem.
yeah,
And those that are pro, obviously the drop off is quite big.
yeah,
And you see it quite often. Someone that drops down doesn't always jump back up.
yeah,
So the pride bit comes into it. I think I don't know if it was about the knowledge of like where I'd go next. I think I was very much under the thing was I want to pay Bristol back, like not only the club but the city as well.
yeah,
So I wanted to play and I wanted to perform for Bristol. Obviously, I think for English rugby to get to the next level, I think it does need to have more than one professional league. I think the time needs to be put into the championship.
yeah.
However, where's that time? Where's that resource? Where's that money coming from? I don't know.
Would promotion and relegation help?
Yeah, I think it would. I think like we've seen 3 teams fold already. We've seen Jersey in the Championship fold, who were one of the few full-time teams.
Yeah.
So, like, in an ideal world, we have the money that football has, and we've got 3-4 leagues that are professional. There's promotion, relegation, where there's actual jeopardy, and if you go down, it's not guaranteed to come back up. And, but however, we're not in that stage yet.
No.
I would love for us to get there. Do I have the answers on how we get there? No,
I don't think anyone does at the minute, Joe. I think we're all we're all searching for them, mate. Do you think the new the new TV deal with TNT will help? Because obviously they're supposed to be televising every game. Have you guys got any wind of? Are they going to do midweek games to try and put all the games on telly, or is it still going to be the standard weekend and Friday night games?
I've heard different things. Probably what everyone else has heard, that it's all going to be potentially they might throw some Thursday night games in just to try and accommodate. But I think what will happen will be it'll just be Friday to Sunday, and they'll try and stagger the kickoff times potentially. Yeah,
that's quite easy though. Only with 5 teams. Oh well, 5 games a weekend, isn't it? So if they open the league up, that's probably where they're going to encounter their issue. Do you think that that's why they're potentially ring-fencing the Premiership while they try and figure out how that works a little bit, while they try and get the TV money in and try and see how it grows and if it can save? There's probably at least 2 clubs within that Premiership bubble that are going to go pop again soon.
I mean, I hope not. I hope
not, but I think
plenty
big rumours.
I think if another Premiership team goes, then I'm not too sure what the Prem has to hold on to. 9 teams is nowhere near enough to be a league that holds any substance. I'm not too sure what will happen. The TV deal hopefully will keep sponsorship and funds coming in, and that will help. Obviously, it's a weird spot at the moment because the product itself is actually really good. The Premiership, if you look at it as a product, where obviously maybe if you discount Newcastle, where everyone could beat anyone.
Yeah.
I think Newcastle next year will be a better team. Obviously, I've worked with Dimes and I know kind of how he'll get that squad in shape. And Newcastle is already not the easiest place to go to. So now to have that on top of a team where under Dimes' leadership, where they'll be scrapping for everything, will be a tough place to go and win. So next year they'll have a game every day where you're not too sure where the result will go, and
I think they're trying to tap up Hoggy as well. They're trying to get Stuart Hogg down there as well, so he might be able to help them a little bit. But do you think that's just a sticky plaster over everything? Because there's also rumours they're going to split the league in 2 as well, and they're going to do 2 separate leagues and then the playoffs and stuff like that. Is there just a lot of sprinkling of glitter onto a bit of dog shit at the minute while they try and resolve something that's not quite firing where it needs to be, where it should be, really? Because the players that are in it and the amount of players that are escaping and going over to France to get their payday, because it was just signed off by the other day, all the DORs have turned around and said, no, don't change the ruling on players playing abroad because we want to try and keep them all here, which is fine, but they haven't got the money to keep the players there. As you said, their careers are so short, they're getting paid 2 or 3 times the amount, unfortunately, they're in a position they're going to have to go.
Yeah. I think, obviously they're going to look at a lot of. I think what I quite like about what's happening at the moment is they're not just sheer blooded mindedness going, this is going to work eventually. They're looking at different options. They're trying out different things. Obviously, not everything's going to stick, not everything's going to work, but the model at the moment clearly isn't working. And I think whatever can be done should be done. And if that then helps the league grow, and then we can end up having those positions where players aren't tempted to go abroad because they're in the best league.
Yeah.
The best players are playing here. They can test themselves. Obviously, the national team will only improve because of that. And like the Premiership is still tough. It's still very, very hard league. And obviously, like people talk about how tough the top 14 is, and the URC now, the South African teams, how competitive that's become. But we still had 2 Premiership teams in the semi-final.
Yeah.
Like Sarries are Sarries. They're still challenging all the time for everything. Northampton, they're resurgence now. Quins can do everything on their day. Bath, obviously, Bristol. I'm going to big us up. Like we can pull a shock off anywhere, and we got the tag of loving to run and play, but we can tuck up the jumper if we need to, and we'll go through a team. So, like the amount of Southern Hemisphere players that come to the Prem and realise it's not a Mickey Mouse league. It's tough, and to have to do it week in, week out, how tough it is on your body and mentally, where obviously in France they kind of put a bit more onus on the home games.
Yeah.
And the URC, because there's so many teams, and the South Africans don't always send the strongest team possible away. Like, there's a little bit of respite within the weeks.
Yeah, they use the away games as their rest games, don't they? But in France, they've got 4 pro leagues as well, so they've got strength in depth over there in the club game in France, and they've got international players still pottering around in the 4th division over in France. And as the home of rugby, that's where we should be aiming. Like, surely as a nation, we should have that same stamp.
Yeah, I think like all it takes is to see the celebrations of Toulouse on the weekends after they won the Champions Cup. Like they absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, La Rochelle the last 2 years, how much they have a party.
Yeah.
Like whenever I've played away in France, like the atmosphere at the game, after the game, is something else. Obviously, you only have to go to Sale away, Newcastle away to see a dip in the attendance. And obviously, Sale have done a fantastic job the last few years to get the numbers going up again. And obviously, it helps because their team's performing better. But like each Prem club's still making a loss each year, so whatever we're doing isn't working.
That's mad,
or isn't working quick enough. So, obviously, it's easy to point out the faults. I don't have any solutions at the moment.
No.
Like we're in that position where the product itself is great, but how do we then market it better potentially? But obviously, whatever France are doing, they're doing very well, and like credit to them.
They don't have multiple teams within an area. So obviously with the London clubs in England, you've got Quins, Sarries, etc. You've got a few within a close. At least in France, they're kind of within each region. So if you're part of that region, you support that club. And I think that probably helps a little bit. Obviously, we don't really have much of an exposure from Hampshire, Kent, Sussex. Like Dorset does on that south coast doesn't have a Premiership team, and then you kind of get a little bit further up. There's a little bit of a concentration of all of them. Then, as you said, you've got Newcastle at the far end. You've got Sale that's off a little bit. And do you think the teams are located in the right places for the Premiership to grow and be marketable?
Well, obviously, like there's massive areas of land that there's nothing, and like even when London Irish were here, like it was to commute from Gosport to London was unfathomable after a school day. To then do training for a couple of hours, then come home.
Yeah, And then they moved to Brentford afterwards, didn't they? So that was when they were probably in Reading. So that's a good hour and a half trek at least, plus 2 hours plus.
They always trained in Sunbury, so it
right,
still
okay. Even worse then, yeah.
Yeah, so it didn't even always add up. So, and then obviously in the southwest you're blessed because you got Bath, Exeter, Bristol, Gloucester a bit further up, and obviously before it all went tits up, you had Worcester and Wasp really close together in that corner there. So the M5 corridor was stacked with teams, and obviously the East Midlands with Leicester and Northampton, they kind of dominated the teams up there, but then there's a massive gap before you get to Sale in Manchester, and then even a bigger gap when you get to Newcastle. Unfortunately, we're dealing with two variations of the game as well. Like league dominates obviously the north predominantly, which is fine. But how do we then try and get ourselves in there? And
we've got teams like Doncaster Knights are doing pretty well in the Championship. You got teams that are up that way that are doing very well within the Championship, but are being deemed that not good enough to be in the Prem.
Yeah, so I don't know how we then accommodate. Obviously, the jump from the Champ to the Prem has become ginormous.
Yeah.
Obviously, the fairy tale of Exeter. Is kind of the last club to be able to do the jump.
But that was down to money and exposure. Yeah. So obviously they didn't have a blinding season their first season or so in the Prem, did they? So they had a building season, and then they managed to carry on and do what they've gone and done now. So
but you say they've had the building season, but they did well enough to stay in it. If you think about London Welsh, obviously Worcester went back and forth, Bristol went back and forth.
Do you think Ealing would be strong enough against the likes of Newcastle at the minute?
I think I've played against Ealing quite a few times. They're a good outfit, a good team, well coached. It just probably goes back to how sustainable are they as a club. Unfortunately, they don't get the attendances that other Championship teams get. Yeah. So, how sustainable is that model? Are we then obviously they've been the best team in the Champ for quite a few seasons now?
Yeah.
Not been able to be promoted because they don't meet the minimum requirement. Then you've got to ask the question: then what is stopping them from getting the minimum requirement as a team that potentially? Obviously, I don't know the answers to this. So I don't want to speak out of turn, but from an outsider looking in, what are they not doing to make sure they can then be promoted? Because it almost gets to the point where it's who's going to come second in the Champ this year? Because Ealing's going to win it.
Yeah, well, Cornish Borough's finished, so they've got a ground that's big enough. They've got to set up, but their owner wants to sell, but he can't sell the Pirates until the RFU make a decision on whether they're going to ever be allowed in the Premiership. So
yeah. My understanding is this season the only team that, if finished first, could have challenged to go up was Doncaster
because of their ground. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I've played a National 2, 1 Championship and Premiership, and all very good leagues in their own right. National 2 was a huge baptism of fire for. I was 17 at the time.
Where did you go? Where did you play then?
So I was at Hartbury. So
okay.
we won that too.
Yeah.
That season, and obviously it was Nat 2 South, so doing a lot of travelling. It was when it was just South and North as the National League. Obviously, it's now split into 3. But as a young second row, it was perfect for me to try and learn my trade.
Yeah.
To then go to Nat 1, where the game sped up a bit. There was a lot more flowing rugby. There were some bigger names that obviously were over the hill a bit, but still playing.
Yeah.
Which was huge. And then Championship is so hard to play in, and I think people don't give it the respect it deserves until you play in it. So I played in it for Rotherham on loan, and also then obviously played for Bristol. And I think there's always the result that no one expects. So when I was at Bristol, Jersey came over and beat Bristol, the only team to beat us that year. And you have last year, Coldy beat Ealing. This year, I think London Scottish beat Ealing. So it's a competitive league, and it's a tough place to go, especially around the Christmas period where those pitches aren't looked after as much as maybe you get in the Premiership. Well, I mean, the Rec's never looked after in Bath, but
no.
So it's a tough league, and I think if we got a bit more exposure, people would see the beauty in it that there is there.
Oh, it's an amazing league. It's an amazing league. It's just, how does that gap close? As you said, there's a gulf between the champions. How do we close that gap without having to open the door to Premiership relegation? Do we replace the LV Cup with maybe a Premiership Championship Cup where they get to blood themselves in through that period? Is that something that could happen?
I think, obviously this year, because of the World Cup, we naturally had that Premiership Cup where the Championship teams are in, but unfortunately, there was quite a lot of mismatches where nature of it was teams saw it as pre-season games, and then you have a Premiership top team playing against a Championship team who maybe would not put out the strongest team they possibly could, risk of injuries, which then led to some huge scores. So obviously, the one I comment on was Bristol played Cambridge, and that was 90-something to 10, I think. So that doesn't do the game any good.
No.
That doesn't do Bristol any good. That doesn't do Cambridge any good. But if you have that competition where players that need game time, so either coming back from injury or are third choice in their position, where they haven't had as much game time, get an opportunity to play against those in the Championship who are probably eyeing up those positions, are becoming a Premiership player, getting into a squad. Then you get a bit more eyes on the game, a bit more competition in there, and you kind of see where the talent's at. And then it probably opens up a bit more of a conversation instead of a couple of massive losses and wins. So
that's fair enough. With what happened at Wasps and at Worcester, did a lot of players probably get lost within the system? And do you think we'll ever see them again? But are there any that you know of that should still be at the top table, but there's just not the room within their Premiership systems for them?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, 3 teams go under. There's 50 players per squad. That's 150 players back in the pool of potential people can get picked up of. There's a limited space in every team because of the salary cap and naturally training numbers. And I can only speak of players that I played with and trained with at Worcester who some of them have decided they gave up and are now looking at other interests. People come to mind. So Andrew Kitchener, very good, talented second row. Close to 100 games for Worcester in the Prem.
And just wrapped it in.
Was fantastic.
Just
and
wrapped it
now, in. He had a trial period at Sarries because they needed a second row, and those 3 months came and went, and he wasn't kept on. And now he's working in London. Obviously, great for him. He's decided this is what he wants to do, and it's working out. But I really think he could still be a Premiership player. Matt Kovacic, who's playing in
he's at Cov now, isn't he?
Coventry now, very much a Premiership player. I think potentially his age went against him, but he'd signed a 3-year at Worcester, so
probably one of the best jackalers of the ball I've seen in the modern time. He was phenomenal over the ball.
He's just an absolute ultimate professional. So, unfortunately, he's now been lost out to the Prem. Brilliant for Cov. They've now got someone of that caliber playing for them, and
I think he's just.
No wonder
I've got him on LinkedIn.
Close this year, but
I've got him on LinkedIn. I think he's just signed up to be a coach at a school in the area as well. So I think he's going to be a rugby coach for one of the sort of the private schools up there. So massive game for obviously Cov and the school that's in that area as well. Because what a player! But he could easily probably do a job, as you said, in the likes of Newcastle. A new club that would be in the Premiership would be perfectly fitted for him, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah. Or like, to be honest, he's such a competitor that if you put him in any squad, he would go tooth and nail to try and get that starting spot. So, and then the last person off the top of my head would probably be Perry Humphreys, who's playing in America now, which is obviously like amazing for him, like life experience going over to play abroad in America and having that challenge. But like, such a constant performer for Worcester and an amazing winger, scored so many tries, ridiculously strong and ridiculously fit. And if potentially if his age was a bit younger when this happened, he probably would have been snapped up quickly. But when you get to that point where, let's say, out of those 150 players, 20 of them are wingers, you're gonna probably cut off at a certain point where the age is. So let's say you're not going to look over 25 because you want to
at least get a return on your investment. Return on your investment and stuff.
Go from there. So unfortunately, like a lot of players probably fell that bracket there. Obviously, I probably got a bit lucky that I had a good relationship with Bristol still.
Yeah.
So, and at the time they needed a second row because of injuries.
Yeah.
So it probably all fell a bit well for me. However, it could have easily happened to me what happened to them, where I'm now looking at other opportunities elsewhere, either within the game in the Championship or abroad, or away from the game, like looking to try and pick up a job outside of that because got a mortgage to pay and family to look after.
How did that all come about then? Did you make the call, or did Pat see it on teletext that you were available and just sort of gave you a tinkle, or what? How did it all work out?
So obviously, well, writing was on the wall a little bit with Worcester.
Yeah.
Like payment each month was getting a little bit later. There was a lot of rumours flying around, like inside the club, outside the club. My coach, Mark Irish, who used to be at Worcester, then went back to Bristol.
Yeah.
Kind of asked the question if I would be keen. I said I would be.
Yeah.
Obviously, then spoke with Pat. He asked the same question. I said I would be. Then it all came to a head at Worcester, and then ball started really turning. And before I know it, I was talking to Bristol and then signing a contract.
So you weren't still in the group chat, just dropping texts to the lads like "sign me up" sort of thing. None of that sort of.
No, I'm not too sure how much pull the lads would have. So.
Oh mate, that'd be imagine that. That's one way of getting signed up. So, as you said, with your diagnosis, you are a brand ambassador for Rugby Against Cancer as well, which is a local cancer charity rugby club local to us, Portsmouth-based. How long have you been part of that, and how good is the message that they're pushing out to everyone? Because obviously they just went to Bournemouth Sevens, gone back-to-back defended titles, haven't they, at least? So they're backing up what they talk about outside of the pitch on the pitch as well at the minute as well, which is really good to see.
Yeah, so I've been part of them for 6 years.
Yeah.
I remember speaking to Aaron quite early on when he was thinking about. Obviously, he'd done a load of legwork at that point, but we hadn't gone live. Asked me if I'd be keen to be an ambassador.
Yeah.
He told me about the vision that he had for it, like of using that rugby family.
Yeah.
To help support and obviously just increase awareness.
Yeah.
Increase not only awareness of like the illnesses themselves, but increase the awareness of like support that's out there. Other charities, they're very much of the model of the money that they raise, half will go to obviously like the big main charities, the other half will go to charities that are a bit more specific and localized to certain strains of the disease or affect certain demographics and stuff like that. So I think it's important that what I liked about it is obviously my love for rugby, and what I felt when I was diagnosed and going through the treatment was the love and the support that was out there for people that I didn't know that reached out to me. Despite not knowing me, but we shared the love for the game and for the sport was our only bonding, and they still felt the need to support and rally for me, which was huge. And obviously, we talk about rugby values, and I know sometimes people can think we're, as rugby players or people that love the sport, we're a bit up our own arse in terms of we preach a lot, but not necessarily practice. But I felt those values firsthand. I felt the rugby family firsthand, and how amazing that can be. And in my darkest time of being there to support me, so the chance that this has to harness everything good about rugby in the community game, in away from the professional game, and the and how that can give you a sense of belonging, and without really knowing someone, but you share the game. It's huge. So I think what they've done is it's been fantastic. I know the work that Aaron has put in, the work that the team's put in. It's been huge. It was fantastic. We had them come up to our home game. It was our combination game, which celebrates all the local teams in Bristol, and they came up to celebrate that with us, and got a message out there. They had their stand at the Ashton Gate, where they were very much supported, and
you had the training tops on and stuff with it as well, didn't you?
Training tops on before the game.
It's brilliant.
It's been huge, and unfortunately, we all know someone or have all been affected by cancer. So it's very much a disease that's close to everyone in a certain way, which is awful. So that whatever we can do to help fight the fight in whatever way we can, in awareness or support or fundraising or whatever it is, we can do it together within that rugby family, which has been amazing.
When you went back to Bristol, obviously you picked up another knock last year, tweaked your knee again, didn't you?
Yeah.
Do you think when you finally managed to cement your spot, that really allowed you to flourish again? Because you've had one hell of a season, mate, and obviously you've really started to push on and stamp that. You're starting to get tries and etc. Really probably playing your game. Do you think being able to secure your spot has helped that, giving you that freedom?
Obviously, nothing's ever guaranteed, and the game's fickle, and you're only as good as your last performance, sort of thing. But you do obviously start getting a bit of credit in the bank, and a mistake that you do early on in your career, which is a bit more catastrophic, becomes a bit more lenient later on. But I think firstly, I've very enjoyed this year for different reasons. I've enjoyed the ownership that I've had with the line out. I've enjoyed the trust given within me to play, and I've played a lot. Obviously, before I broke my rib against Gloucester, I played every minute, and then obviously had to come off against Gloucester. But the luck of the season, where the weeks off fell, I only missed the Newcastle game, and then was lucky enough then to be selected again to play against who was that next game? Gloucester, Newcastle, Saracens, and then obviously the final game against Harlequins. So I think I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed the growth the team's been on and the journey the team's been on this year. And then off the back of that, the second half of the season, I've enjoyed the ball in my hands, the chance to express myself in attack, and so I think all of this is then accumulated into me having a good year. I mean, you play better and you do better if you enjoy it. I've obviously loved having my family come watch me and be a part of the big moments and the big wins. I think if I'm going to be hypercritical of myself, I think there's a lot more I can do, and I'm excited to hopefully show that. And I know what I need to be done. I need to do this off season and this pre-season to get myself in the best physical shape to then kick on again. And if that happens, then I'm into another good year, and I'll be staring down the barrel of having 100 games for Bristol, which would be an amazing achievement to have as well, and it'd be a proper way to thank the club and thank the community and the city of Bristol for what they've done for me in my lifetime. So
Yeah.
I think to answer your question shortly, I think I've enjoyed my rugby, which then has allowed me to play well.
Yeah. Do you think you're in a position to be able to put yourself back in the shop window for an England call up? I know you played for under 18s, under 20s. Is that the next target you've got an eye on? I know you probably don't want to say it out loud, but
I think
if you carry on having seasons like you've had, you've surely got to be able to put yourself in some sort of frame if you know you're at the pinnacle of where you could be.
Yeah, I think obviously that's the dream and that's the aim. I have quite a few dreams and aims. Obviously, I want to win the Premiership. I want to do that with Bristol. I want to get 100 games for Bristol, and I want that England cap.
Yeah.
I want that England tag next to my name. And I think if I achieve what I want to achieve on the domestic with winning the Premiership with Bristol, have another good year, keep growing, then there's no reason why I can't. Obviously, again, the race against the clock. I'll be 28 next year. People will be talking about the next World Cup cycle. Would I feature in that? I don't know. My age bracket. Not only that,
it's only 2 years away, isn't it? So
yeah, but not only that, there's some outstanding second row options. I mean, Maro Toje has that lockdown every time, and rightly so. He's an amazing player.
Really.
Alex Coles is going really well for Saints, and obviously you've got George Martin and Chesham at Leicester who have played outstanding for England, and both of them were huge in the World Cup just gone to get to that third place. So, I mean, I would love the opportunity to come, and if it does, then I'll make sure I do what I can to try and achieve my dream. But I think if I get bogged down on thinking about international honours too much, then my form for Bristol will slip, and then I'll hurt myself ultimately. But I mean, like I said, I've got a lot of dreams, a lot of aspirations within the game, and all of them are very much achievable if I put my head down and work. And then the special crowning moment of potentially getting a cap and becoming an international, then will come off the back of that.
Obviously, if it comes to the end and you're not out, you're not in with a shout of England, and you know that, does that sort of going to France interest you? Does that sort of payday like the others? Does that sort of give you an inkling that you might pop over there, or maybe America or Japan, or do you see yourself playing anywhere but in England?
I mean, like, I'm very much open to any opportunity. I'm not blind to the fact that opportunities like these don't come often, to have a chance to live and work abroad, and give my son the opportunity to live and to live abroad and have different experiences, different cultures. It'd be a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it's something that I'm very much open to. Obviously, the older that he gets, the harder that decision will be made. But I've got 2 more years at Bristol. Rugby is very short term, so my focus is moving to Bristol and playing the best I can for them. And if I go well, then opportunities will come off the back of that, hopefully within Bristol or wherever it may be, and I get to continue the dream of being a professional player for a few more years. Yeah.
Well, now that they've got Sinks' salary off the payroll, some of the money must be coming your way, surely.
Doesn't work like that, sadly.
Who's the best player that you've played with, and who's the best player you've played against?
Best player I've played with, probably Steve Luatua for Bristol.
What a player!
I mean, but what he's done off the pitch at Bristol is huge. He was captain for years, and the role he has now to help guide Fitz is massive. And him on the pitch, I mean, he's always 7, 8 out of 10. Mr. Reliable, puts in the big shots, has the ability to do exactly the right thing at exactly the right time, which helps the team immensely. The year that Bristol finished top, he was massive in everything they did. And he's been a real mentor for me as well, for my 2 stints there, which has been huge. Another player that I've played with who is unbelievably good would be Ted Hill. He's an absolute freakish athlete who is so strong and quick. And his pain threshold was through the roof. He'll just keep going and going. And, it was a pleasure to play alongside him to get
make your job easier
and not playing against him. And I'm sure he'll be going to New Zealand with England in the summer. I'm sure of it. So that'd be my 2. And then to play against, the only name I can ever think of would be Will Skelton. Just played against him. He was at Saracens. I was at Leicester at the time, and the man was just a freak in terms of, obviously you hear the stats, you hear how big he is, but to actually see it on the pitch is something else. And I'll always remember, I was obviously playing, and he was running a bit of a hard line back towards the breakdown. I remember seeing him early, and I was thinking, right, this is my moment. If I put a good shot here, then highlight reels, I'm going to get clubs coming out my ears. People are going to want to know who this next person is. And as he's caught the ball, I've hit him high. I've gone across the tits, trying to get a big collision, and I've hit him a bit blind, so he's not seeing me. All the momentum's with me, and he's worn it. He's taken a step, and he's not moved a little bit. So as he's moving, I've then gone a bit lower, trying to get his hips. He's taken another step. He's not moved, and then before I know it, I'm hanging off his foot, trying to get someone to help me out with the tackle. So
just screaming, please help.
Exactly. He's a monster of a man, and deceptively skillful as well. So he doesn't need to because of the brute strength that he has, but he would definitely be the one that I would always say, because not many people can do what he can do, and that's purely because of how big he is.
Amazing. Joe, thank you so much, mate. I could talk for hours, mate. This has been phenomenal. I'm sure there's not many people that thought we could get a pro player on this podcast so early, but such a gentleman, absolute quality to get you on here as well. Taking out your time, obviously, go well next season. Thank you so much, and great to have you on, mate.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and good luck for what's next.
Cheers, Joe.
Cheers, mate. Catch you.
Well, that brings this pod to an end. If you made it this far, I just want to take a moment to thank you for listening right through and express my gratitude for following yet another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues. So, in today's episode, we found out how Joe managed to become a pro after having that desire from a young age, to that nearly being swept away from him with a cancer diagnosis at 21 years of age, to getting his career back on track and becoming one of the best second-row options in the Prem. Next week, we've got James Shanahan on. Shanners is the DOR at Blackheath Rugby Club and currently seems to be signing all of the talent available. James is also the head coach of Cambridge Uni for the varsity games, so we am able to delve into that too. Another great interview. Once again, a huge thank you to you all. Thank you and goodbye.